Welcome to Satsunami. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Satsunami. I'm Satsunami and looking back with me today on 20 years of Xbox, would you believe? God, I feel old. I better not fall down this rabbit hole, is Adam. Welcome, Adam.
Hi there. Good to be back. And yeah, I was just marveling that it's been 20 years. How the time flies, but also drags at the same time.
See, this is true. This is indeed true. Because this is the thing. You came to me I can't remember, I think it was just after we did last week's episode, and you said, oh, this would be a really good topic to discuss. And I thought, yeah, discussing the Xbox would be like a really good idea. I mean, how long's it been, 10, 15 years, was it? And you turned around and you're like, actually, it's the 20th anniversary this year. And I was like, wait, what? No.
84 years.
It's been 84 years. We'll be like old men just like on rocking chairs thinking back to the days of the Xbox 360.
when it's the Xbox One XS XS whatever, like many of the letters I just like to put at the end of it.
Yeah, it'll be like the Xbox like Phantom or like the Xbox. Yeah, just Xbox.
That's too coherent a name, I feel. It has to, now they've set a precedent for it being like just random letters, usually X's or S's.
Yeah, it'll just be like it'll be like one word like Madonna, just Xbox.
It'll be like Elon Musk's child's name. That'll be the thing they'll go for.
What did he call his child again?
Oh, don't make me try and get the things.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll move on from that.
Of a random collection of letters and numbers and symbols it was.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you remember back in the day, this is me like going off on a tangent, but do you remember the day when if a celebrity was gonna name their baby after something, it would be something wacky but simple, like Apple or a country name, Yeah, it's just numbers and letters. It's just rude. It's rude for people like us. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, as that very subtle introduction, kind of led the breadcrumbs into the discussion. Today we're going to be talking about a baby celebrity name. No, I'm joking. We're going to be talking about the Xbox, and of course it's 20 years. And again, I honestly, I keep saying 20 years and then kind of like slowly and silently crying. I don't think I would have even been 10 years old. Like 20 years ago, that's kind of what's worrying me. I'm thinking, my God.
I wasn't. I was still single digits when the Xbox was released. Mm-hmm. When the original Xbox was released.
Mm-hmm. And it is very strange because I was actually talking to you about this before we came on. But if you think about the kind of gaming landscape that we grew up with, don't get me wrong, we are not that old that we're like 80s children. But, we kind of grew up through the kind of, would it be correct to say like the aftermath of the 80s?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, I for myself was born early 90s.
Yeah.
And so dealing with the hangover from the previous decade.
Yeah, because, I mean, I have to admit, I was fortunate in the sense that I had, like, older brothers that got those consoles. Like, the NES, the SNES and everything. And those were the kind of consoles, or the kind of companies like Sega and Nintendo, they were the ones that were, like, dominating the market at the time. And even, I think it was the late 90s where, like, even the PlayStation came about, and it was really like, it was just these kind of three companies, wasn't it? Like, you had Atari and everything, but let's face it, see, other than nostalgia's sake, like, when was the last time you heard Atari? Like, as a main player? And I'm sorry for all, like, the Atari fanboys out there. I'm sorry.
Nobody's an Atari fanboy. I refuse to believe there's Atari fanboys out there.
Yeah.
Like, but there's a lot of things you can hitch your wagon to. Why would you hitch your wagon to Atari? Like, no, I refuse to believe it.
Yeah, if there's any Atari fanboys out there, like, if you want to email us anonymously at Satsunami, Satsunami at gmail.com, please feel free and let us know if you're an Atari fanboy.
Tell us how the spectral realm is, because you clearly don't exist.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay, that's half our base gone. Yeah, it's like a Venn diagram where it's like Atari fans.
What's the
Yeah.
other half of the Venn
I don't
diagram? What's the other part of the Venn diagram?
well, according to
Atari
you,
fans and blank.
I was gonna say, like, according to you, no taste. So, just in the middle, Satsunami is just kind of nestled in there nicely.
The
Like,
one bit of taste they have.
yeah, yeah, the one crumb. Anyway, aside from bashing Atari, yeah, aside from bashing Atari, so those were the kind of companies, Sega, Nintendo, and then eventually Sony came into the mix, and they were like really big brands. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they were all like Japanese brands, weren't they?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
the three big
the
ones
three
there that you
ones, yeah.
mentioned
Hmm.
were the ones that came to dominate
Hmm.
for that period were all Japanese developers because well, it's like the Western market had like kind of I might be wrong on this, but if I am wrong, apologies. But from what I understand, the Western market kind of kickstarted the console thing because Atari was, as much as it's backed Atari there, they were like the early leader in that field. And then, in the early 80s, early mid 80s, with many high profile disasters, particularly the ET game, and basically sunk the whole market, and they've never recovered. They never recovered from that, and it took like the Japanese companies were the ones, particularly Nintendo, were the ones to take that lead. But then Sony then took the baton on afterwards.
It is obviously like that's a whole discussion in itself of how like it evolved so really so much in just a decade. Like
Yeah.
from just arcade to like home consoles and kind of introducing it to that. And my God, I mean, we could do a chat tsunami alone on just the kind of micro scale of like
Yeah.
the wacky gadgets and things that came out of it. The power
Maybe one
glove.
day.
Like the
That would
power.
be a great one day. Mark that
Oh,
down. We'll have to
yeah.
do that at some point.
Exactly. We need to source one. Yeah, the
The
Power
Virtual
Glove, the
Boy and
Virtual Boy,
everything.
yeah. What are the other one? There's loads of them anyway. But as you said, like, or rather confirmed, yeah, these were all like Japanese companies. And I mean, there were like Western companies, and I think the most prominent up until the Xbox was Atari. I mean, there would have been
Probably
there would have
still.
been others like trying to cash in, but it's kind of strange because I know like Microsoft, obviously, that small indie company, was starting to make strides in it, looking at gaming, thinking, I want a taste of that, And then in
Yeah.
2001, which thank God I can say, for definite it's 2001 because it's been 20 years of Xbox, the Xbox, well, the original one, came into fruition, and that was around the same generation as like the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, wasn't it?
They were the three big. That was
Mm.
that's what I vividly remember. It was that console war. I
Yeah,
think is that the sixth? Is that technically the sixth generation of
that's what I
consoles?
thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And that those were the three big. I don't know if there was a because well there's a Dreamcast. And I don't quite know where the Dreamcast falls. If the Dreamcast maybe falls more into the fifth generation. I suppose
Yeah.
because it might be more that level. But like yeah, like these were the three big ones: the Xbox, the PS2, and the GameCube.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, the PlayStation was absolutely massive. Like, the first one was
Oh god.
massive. The second one just blew everything out the water. I would say, like, hands down, that is, like,
Well, you just need to look at the sales of units. Like
oh yeah.
the Xbox in its whole lifetime, I think sold 26 million units. The GameCube was 24 million units. The PS2 sold 115 million. Like it wasn't even close. Like it wasn't even close in any respect in that in the sixth generation. It got a bit closer. It got much closer with the next generation with all their sequels. But yeah, this sixth generation wasn't even close. Like the Sony were far and away like the dominant player.
And something that I found quite interesting, and I suppose this kind of reflects on my own experiences with the console growing up. So, for full disclosure, I never owned a original Xbox. It's weird because my brothers like owned kind of one of them would get the like Nintendo ones, and then the other one would get the Sega ones, and of course,
Oh God, was
obviously.
there a war in your family with your warring brothers?
Surprisingly not. Surprisingly. Well, brotherliness, but not beyond the console wars. But it was quite interesting because I got to experience, like, I was lucky that I got to experience, like, both sides of it, therefore, like, harbouring a terrible habit of becoming a Sonic fan at that young age. Something that I am working on.
You have my sympathies.
Yes. Yeah, I'm talking to someone about it, so, it's fine. But yeah, like, I think that by that point, My brother had a PlayStation 2. I don't know if he got it himself or he got it for his birthday. Can't remember, but I ended up getting a GameCube instead. And I always remember seeing the Xbox and kind of being very curious and being like, oh, can I get it? And at the time, my parents were like, nah, not really. They were very much in the mindset, which obviously, like, for any parents listening out there, you'll know, where, you know, like a child says, oh, can I get that? And it's like, you know the meme, oh, can I have Xbox? Oh, we've got Xbox at home. And they go home and it's like, I don't know, the VR Virtual Boy or something.
GameCube painted black.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God, imagine. Do you know, I have to admit, I was always jealous at the fact that, yeah, it was, I think it was a Japan exclusive, that they got a GameCube that was just bright orange. And I was like,
oh, that would be your ideal.
Oh, that would. I mean, a Nintendo console that's bright orange, like, sign me up, coach. I am ready. But, like, that was the only kind of console I had at the time, which I'm not saying that as an, oh, poor me, I never had an Xbox. But the only time I ever got exposed to an Xbox was either when I went to a friend's house, you know, like I would go over and be like, oh, you know, what you playing? And I think one time they were playing like a Star Wars game. There was like all the other games out for it at the time, like Conker's Bad Fur Day. There was even another game called, and you're going to laugh at this because I don't know if you know about this one, it's called like Blink or something. And
I used to have Blink. That was one of their launch titles.
Yeah, it was like their version of their animal mascot, wasn't it?
It was like a weird mix of like, from what because I only played a little bit of it, but it was like a kind of weird mix of, there were certainly elements of Mario, and it was a bit like Luigi's Mansion as well because he had the Blinks had like the vacuum type thing that Luigi has.
Yeah.
From what I recall, so they're kind of aping those Nintendo games.
Yeah, I always remember seeing it and thinking, oh, I really want to play it. And then I never got the chance because, yeah, I didn't get the Xbox. But I don't think I really missed, correct me if I'm wrong, did I miss much?
I mean, it never really, you know, it's one of these games I think I played for a little bit. But I did have a copy of it, but I think unfortunately I got rid of my copy, so I was going to say, oh, you can play my copy, but I don't think I have it anymore. But no, like, not one that really... Out of the games that I fondly remember on the Xbox, I have to admit that's not one of them.
I mean, they made a sequel, technically, so...
there was one, I think, yeah.
At least maybe it was, like, positive. But the other one I was going to bring up, though, was Rareware. You know, a very famous punching bag that I like to bring up on the show, because, as I've said, I was, like, a big fan of Rareware back in the day when it was still under Nintendo, and that was the period, I'm sure, that they went over to Microsoft. And the only reason I remember that is because they brought out Conker's Bad Fur Day on the Xbox, but it was like a remastered version to kind of show off what they...
With some added content as well, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think it was actually more censored on the Xbox version.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like... There is like a lot of like the swearing's kind of bleeped out in some bits, and there's certain bits that are, you know, taken out. It is a really weird design choice, but you know, I can kind of understand because I always remember seeing that in the shops, and there was just like this huge sticker on the front of them, and they would be like, "Don't buy this for kids. Just don't buy this for kids, please. Just it's not for kids. Don't buy it. Just go away." Shoo. But yeah, what was your experience of the Xbox?
Well, the Xbox, original Xbox was the first ever video game console I ever had. I'd played video games like on PC and stuff, and I had a Game Boy Color, and so I played some things there. But I never really I didn't really got into video games as such, but I kind of really always wanted a console, and I think after much badgering, my parents eventually relented, and that's why I vividly remember like the three, you know, contenders, because it was trying to decide, like, my 9 to 10-year-old self was trying to decide which one to get out of the three of them, and I kind of I think I swung at points to all three. I was like, I want to get a PS2, no, I want to get a GameCube, but eventually I settled on, and I can't even remember really why, but I eventually settled on getting an Xbox. I think I quite like the color scheme. I like the kind of green and black, and maybe there's some games as well. I can't really remember. It's that, but I decided to get an Xbox, and that's you know what made me the man I am today. And I'd love to go visit like alternate reality Adams, where I chose one of the other consoles and just see what changed in my life if I got a GameCube or something instead. But that was the one I got. So the original Xbox, it released in Europe in March 2002. Wow. So a few months after the November 2001 release in the States. I must have got it about my birthday's in April, so I think I probably would have got it then maybe about my birthday time. Can't remember. So I'd have been 10 at that time. And yeah, like I fell in love. I fell in love with Xbox and the games and everything. I bought my Xbox. I might have said the story already, but I bought my Xbox with a kind of racing game bundle.
Oh yeah.
But I managed to finagle my way into replacing one of the racing games with Halo, which was obviously the big flagship title that people were talking about. So I managed to finagle my way into getting one. I don't know how, but I managed to replace one of the games with Halo and got the bundle. And yeah, that kickstarted me off.
And we we all know where we stand on Halo on this channel, don't we? Or this
You
podcast.
go, you go, you go to that one, that
Yeah.
episode.
Episode 2. Yep, go look for it. It's a very good retrospective. That's all I'm saying. It's a good
It is
retrospective.
indeed. I would agree.
But it's funny you actually mention, like, the reason you chose an Xbox was because of the colour scheme and everything. Because when I was actually looking into the old Xbox, apparently this console wasn't very. I think it did well in the American market, but it didn't do well in, like, Japan or Europe.
Oh, it bombed. It bombed in
Yeah,
Japan.
like I was really surprised about Europe, but Japan did not take to the Xbox. And I know we're going to talk about it later, but the Xbox 360 as well wasn't
Yeah.
that big of a hit over there. And I think obviously the reason for that is probably just the domestic companies. Like, you've got Nintendo obviously as the flagship of gaming over there, or rather the old
Yeah.
guard nowadays. You've got Sony, which, let's face it, Sony and Microsoft are both like the huge contenders nowadays, even though they kind of falter at times, but again, that's another thing we'll definitely come to. But with the original Xbox, it just bombed. And you would think that maybe that would have deterred them, but it must have done really well. That was the same console, mind you. As you were saying, you got Halo from this, and
Yeah.
Halo 2 came out for this as well, didn't it?
Yeah, Halo 2 was the biggest selling, I think, was the biggest selling game for the original Xbox. I mean, what's interesting is, from what I've read, the original Xbox was actually a huge money loser from Microsoft. I think it ended up losing them like something. They lost like about $5 billion with the Xbox and stuff. But being a big company, they could absorb.
Yeah.
They could absorb that loss, and it was worth it in the end because it's obviously a very profitable part of their business now. So it's that kind of way of what's the old phrase? You need to spend money to make money.
Speculate to
And they spend
accumulate.
and they spend a lot of money, spend a lot of dollars on this, but it's ended up being a success story for them. But yeah, like it kind of did set the. I mean, what's interesting as well is I find is that as Microsoft entered the console race, this seemed to just like be the end for Sega. I think like they obviously like been faltering with their consoles, been faltering for a while, but like with the entry of Microsoft, I think they looked at it and went, "We're just going to get edged out of this now. There's no real space for us with this." So that's why they moved away from making consoles. So it's interesting that like the entry of this one just killed off one of the old guard.
Towards the beginning of the like sixth generation, Sega had completely backed out of like console development. So that kind of left like a ripe market for
Yeah.
companies like Microsoft to kind of, I wouldn't say weasel their way in. They did like put effort. Like they didn't put like a shoddy product to get like rich quick. They actually did innovate, and considering the graphics at the time, because I know the Xbox has always been praised for having like really good graphics, same with the PlayStation, but in terms of the Xbox, they've always said that, especially compared to what was around those days,
Yeah.
it was definitely a trailblazer in some senses.
It was ahead of its time. Oh, it definitely was ahead of its time as well. I mean, like it had one thing that I always laugh about now is that the original Xbox had a built-in hard drive, so you didn't need to have memory cards or anything like that. And I remember when I eventually got a PlayStation 2, like I didn't realize at all about I think I knew about memory cards, but I kind of forgot. So I was playing this game and I was like, oh, I'm done. Closed it down, opened it, and a couple of days later I was like, where the hell is all my progress? And I was like, oh, and then this is when I found out the pain of memory cards needing that. But the Xbox had a built-in ones. It was something I never had to like. My child brain never really had to develop the part of your brain that remembers to save things on a memory card. But as well, like with the original Xbox, it was another thing that was really kind of ahead of its time in a way and set a trailblaze was Xbox Live, which really took off with the 360. But it did start with the original Xbox, like I think maybe 2004, 2003 when it kicked off, and that was that really did set a trend for what was to come. And I was hearing something interesting that like when the original Xbox came out, though there was still a lot of dial-up internet, kind of broadband was coming in, but it was still mostly dial-up, and I think people were worried. I think the Xbox was kind of built around the idea of using broadband as opposed to dial-up for your kind of online gaming, and people thought this might be something that like was too niche, but actually ended up being very prescient because shortly after that, broadband had completely like wiped out dial-up internet pretty much. So it was, as you say, it was ahead of its time in many respects.
Because, I mean, the PlayStation, not the PlayStation, sorry. I mean, the PlayStation did. I think the PlayStation 2 had online play as well.
It did, yes.
Not to the same extent, I suppose, as like what it is nowadays.
Not as well integrated.
Yeah, it is so much better in terms of integration. Like, even, I think, like, I can't say for definite this was the first console that did it, but I remember even the Dreamcast capitalised on it. I don't know whether it was because, again, as you were saying, is it too early in the timeline, let's say? That, you know, like, no one's really wanting to use slow dial-up internet. Nobody's wanting to, you know, no one's wanting to use up, you know, the phone line.
Yeah, exactly.
And get yelled at by your parents. It's like, get off the phone, and it's like, I can't, I'm playing Sonic Adventure online. Get off the phone. And yeah, even though the Xbox kind of, as we've been saying, like trundled along, I mean, the success of it then probably paled completely in comparison to what was about to come for the 360. Yeah. I feel as if the 360 is definitive, and I'm not being like hyperbolic here and saying it is definitive of gaming, but I mean, it's so kind of ingrained in the culture, probably as much as the PlayStation 2 was. Like, when people talk about, like, here's a question for you, and sorry to put you on the spot, but see when someone says to you Xbox, what console do you think of first out of the lineup?
I'll think of the 360.
The 360?
I will think of the 360 first, probably.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I honestly think, in a way, the 360 was almost like the... And again, maybe this is a lukewarm take, so apologies, but we do like our lukewarm takes. Or sorry, I like my lukewarm takes. But yeah, I feel as if the 360 is probably that generation's version of the PlayStation 2, because there was just so many games that came out for the Xbox. Just, they came out, like, you know, really fast, and they eventually came out really cheap towards the kind of end of its life. And I mean, it's a fantastic console, but I don't think, like, the original Xbox got to that kind of height. Like, the GameCube, everyone remembers the GameCube, and everyone, of course, remembers the PlayStation 2. For the original Xbox, like, everyone remembers it, but I don't think everyone had access to it. Yeah, like, not everybody had that kind of accessibility to say, oh, I had an Xbox and everything, which obviously a lot of people must have, because, I mean, considering Halo has such a huge following and everything, that's indicative of the console doing its job, you know.
I was just going to say, I think what really helped the 360, and I think part of the reason, like, compared to, like, the original Xbox came out after the PS2. So the PS2 came out a year before, in 2000, and, you know, with it, and this was already, like, you know, the PlayStation 1 was already wildly popular, so there was lots of, like, PlayStation fans now who were waiting for the next console, so it could build on that. And of course, the Xbox was starting out, and I think most people who are Xbox gamers now, or played an Xbox, it will have been they'll either have started with the 360, or else they'll have, like, the Xbox console they'll have or have had was the 360. And part of the reason was that it was the first one to come out in that seventh generation of consoles, and it came out a year before the PS3. And I can't remember when the Wii came out. Was the Wii 2006 maybe as well?
Yeah, the Wii was 2006. I remember, like, just sorry, in a kind of side tangent, do you remember the fuss that the Wii, you know, caused?
Oh god, yeah, like the Wii was
like people, like people having to, you know, like order it from Germany, and that seemed to be the go-to place. I don't know why they were all in Germany, but that seemed to be the thing. Like, everyone was phoning up being like, oh yeah, I can't get a Wii for Christmas, so we're getting like a shipment of them from Germany, and it's like, why does Germany have so many of them? I don't know. I don't know whether it was like they shipped it there and then over, but that was honestly, like, every time I heard someone trying to get a Wii in 2006, it was always from Germany. It was always that, and it's like, it was strange, but, you know, like, eventually they got their Wii, and yes, for those of you wondering, yes, it was in English, so it's It was okay. I think once he got past the startup, the going through the languages and things, it was like, yeah, that's fine. But
It's all good.
yeah, looking back, that kind of leads us on nicely, I think, to the 360 era, which, as you said, it's just such a definitive era in the Xbox's
Yeah.
life, isn't it?
And my life as well. Say my gaming life, certainly, anyway.
It's definitely the one that, like, when I went to university as well, especially, like, a lot of people had Xbox 360s.
Yeah.
And that became kind of like... See, this is the ironic thing because, and again, we will come to, like, the Xbox One. Like, one of the famous, or infamous, let's just say, talking points of the Xbox One was that a lot of people said, oh, the Xbox One's going to be like the new water cooler. And I'm going to be honest, I think the Xbox 360 did far more to achieve that than what its predecessor would have done. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you just need to look at the actual sales. If you compare the original Xbox sold 26 million, the 360 sold 84 million units. That's a huge jump.
Oh yeah.
And like the PS3 eventually outsold the Xbox 360 over the span of their respective lifespans. But the PS4, it was only by I say only by 2 million more. Like that's still a lot. But compared to how much more the PS2 outsold the original Xbox, 84 million. 86 million is very close. I mean, the Wii was the best selling, I think, of that generation, as you said, because the hype for it was just out of control and extreme. I think it sold over 100 million units, so it was by far the most successful one. But it's quite incredible how fast like the Xbox 360 like grabbed onto the gaming market and actually took and really pushed Microsoft to become one of the dominant players. In a way that this could have been the end. It could have been the 360 could have been the end for Microsoft if it hadn't done well, but it spectacularly and kept them in the business of gaming, obviously. Microsoft would still be going regardless of who the Xbox was. But
it's like you get those images of like the rich billionaires like crying into the money, and it's like, how would Microsoft recover?
Melania was it Melina? I've forgotten Bill Gates' wife now, but she'd be getting slightly less in the divorce. Now than whatever she's entitled to now.
Yeah, half a PC. Sorry, 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's it. Yeah,
and all the unsold 360s.
Yeah, what, the red ringed ones?
Yeah, all the red ringed ones.
Oh god. Before I hand it over to you, I know we're both kind of well versed in like this period of Xbox lore, let's say. Yeah. I don't even know what you would call this period of gaming, but it's like, other than Gen 7, but like, so yeah, as we touched on there was for those of you who are old enough as well to remember, there was like really just the plague, wasn't it? It was an epidemic, of course, called the Red Ring of Death, and essentially what it was I think, and I don't know this like 100%, but I was watching a video talking about it, and I think it was something to do with because, so how you've got the Xbox 360 console itself, with the big white tower, and then outside of it you've got like a huge power pack that you can knock someone out with.
Yeah, it was giant.
Like it had an external power pack which acted as the external source. But if like one of those wires, like whether it was in the power pack or the console itself, whether one of them like broke, it would cause the whole system to just crash, and you wouldn't be able to fix it. It was literally, when you said Red Ring of Death, it literally meant your console was dead. It was like there would literally be a flashing red light, which then became kind of a meme, which I think Sony and other companies capitalised on.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, I wasn't sure when I was jumping into the next generation. I was like, did I get an Xbox? Did I get a PlayStation? And I decided to wait it out for the PlayStation. And this is like one more quick point, but it's about brand. And again, I don't want to sound like a kind of like a damn capitalist, but it's like about brand loyalty, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of factors to kind of take into consideration. Like, I was thinking about this, like, how I actually got into the Xbox, or just the Xbox in general. And the reason was because, initially, as I said, I had the GameCube, and my brother had the PlayStation 2. But as my brother got older, he kind of, like, moved away from gaming. So I took up the family mantle of gaming, and it is one I've held ever since. But I got the PlayStation PlayStation 3 because I heard about the Xbox and I kind of thought, oh, I'm not comfortable with, bricking. So I was like, okay, I'll take it on. So I bought the PlayStation eventually. And although I like my PlayStation 3, like, because I could play all my old, PlayStation 2 games, and also it meant that I didn't have to buy a memory card, it was like good in that sense. But the only major issue was that I didn't have many friends to play with online. A lot of the friends that I used to play with online on like the PlayStation, I started to drift away from them in real life. And there was a lot of other people that I knew that had a PlayStation, but at the time I wasn't really close to them, or like I wasn't really friends with them. So that was out of the question. A lot of my other friends were like, oh, I've got an Xbox. I've got the Spartacus of Xboxes. But, like, they all had Xboxes. And then I thought, okay, I'll get an Xbox then, because all my friends now are on the Xbox. And I think eventually I got lucky because my parents kept asking me, is it not the same console? And it's like, it's not the same, Mom. And yeah, I think one Christmas I ended up getting the Xbox Elite, which was like a model above the original one. So it was basically the same console, but it ran better, and it had a dashing coat of black instead of white on it, which was very nice. And sorry, I'll flip it back to you.
No.
Sorry, because
I was actually interested because, like, well, we might as well talk about the technical issues since we've kind of gone into it, and it was a big part of the 360. But was the Red Ring of Death and those technical issues? Was that the reason that you was that a real reason that you decided to wait then, really? Like, because obviously I know you didn't have an original Xbox, and so were you tempted to get a 360, and then it was because of these technical issues that made you be like, nah, I'll stick with the PlayStation brand?
Yeah, I suppose it was kind of that brand familiarity. It's like, it was a brand that I was familiar with because I had the PlayStation 2, so it seemed like a logical step to, like to not evolve, that sounds very dramatic, but like to go from the PlayStation 2, which was more of a family console. Well, when I say family, I mean my brother and I. Like, my brother would use it, and then eventually, as I said, he grew out of gaming, so I took it on. I played the PlayStation 2, and then I thought, okay, I might as well play the PlayStation 3, or sorry, buy that when it comes out, which meant kind of waiting longer, which was a bit like, it was annoying because, you know what kids are like.
Yeah.
Like, I was very impatient. I wanted to get it as soon as possible. And, I convinced myself that, like, oh, the Xbox will be, dearer and everything, it won't be the same, I'll have no one to play with. And funny enough, actually, technically, the Xbox 360 was the first gaming console that I had a proper online game with someone on. I mean, technically, it was the PlayStation, but yeah, I wouldn't include PlayStation Home as... I wouldn't include that as gaming or like an experience, but the first like proper game that I played with a friend, which, and I'll give you a laugh here because, like, everyone nowadays takes it for granted that you switch on the console, it connects to the Wi-Fi or your Ethernet cable, and that's it. Like, that's it. You're raring to go. I had the Xbox Elite, so that was a step before there was another, I think it was the Xbox S, we said.
Yeah.
It was like it was, as you were saying to me before we started, it's like more of an angular console. Yeah, it was like shiny plastic, and I think that had like a built-in wireless receiver. So if you wanted one, like, if you wanted to play your game wirelessly, you had to buy like a dongle and then like connect it to the back of the console, and then that would connect. I didn't have one of those, so what I did instead was I had to connect my Xbox to my laptop. And I had to bridge the connections. Like, you had to go into your like settings. It was such a faff because I had a like Ethernet cable from my laptop to my Xbox 360, connected them together. You had to go in, you had to bridge a connection. It was all a faff, but it worked. It genuinely did work, but it was so slow. It was just such for what it was just such a faff. But that's the way I played it, honestly. And some people might be wondering, oh, why didn't you plug it into your modem? The reason being, like, I was was upstairs in my room, and the modem was like down in the living room.
Yeah.
So it's like there
No.
was no way I would be able to get a cable long enough. Plus, I don't think my parents would have approved like having a huge cable going through the house. Like, so yeah, that was my fun experience.
Yeah. No, it is
Yeah.
fun thinking about that with the dongle and everything. What I find like going back to the Red Ring of Death, just as a
Yeah.
last sort of thing. What I find fascinating about that, and actually, this is I can speak as somebody whose original Xbox 360 suffered the Red Ring of Death and
Really?
died. So I also have the Elite now because my original one uh, died got the dreaded Red Ring of Death a few years after I think 2008 maybe or something, 2009. So I got the Elite as well. But what I find fascinating is this is a thing that could have killed. Like this could have a smaller company. This would have been the death knell. I'm almost certain.
Oh
Like
yeah.
a small company making this, they would never have recovered from this. So Microsoft had to make the decision of how they were going to handle this. And what they decided to do is they decided to throw money at it, and it cost apparently $1.15 billion to fix this issue. So
Oh.
what they did was they extended warranties on the consoles, and that the cost. It was an expensive decision, but one in the long run that actually probably helped save Xbox because this was a huge thing that was turning people off getting a 360. Right. You can understandably so. Like it was a big thing. As somebody who suffered it, I can say it was a pretty unpleasant thing. In the day, like being a big company, they could absorb this and they had the capital to throw at it
Yeah.
to actually help it. And that's again another thing of prolonging the Xbox brand.
Uh-huh.
So it is just a fascinating issue regarding the 360 and everything. So like going into kind of the 360 and kind of we'll jump back to looking at its release. So like obviously you said you were aware when it came out, the 360 and everything, but you said you were like, obviously you were a Nintendo and a PlayStation gamer at that point, as opposed to an Xbox One.
Yeah.
Me on the other hand, I was a committed Xbox gamer by this point, and I was very very excited about the 360. So 360 came out in December of 2005, and I was really really keen to get one, really desperate to get one. But like any new console coming out, it's always very difficult to get your hands on a copy. Like not quite as bad as it is now. But even back in the before times, but pre-COVID, it was still difficult sometimes to get your hands on a new console. And I remember like I really wanted one for Christmas. And I remember like my parents kind of preparing me for the fact that I wouldn't likely get one, for Christmas
Yeah.
because it was just like you would hear like there was shop had some in stock, and by the time you got there, they'd all be gone, in the space of an hour or something, because everybody was desperately trying to snap one up. So like I was kind of prepared. It's funny, I was kind of prepared, and this is a story that's going to make me sound like the most privileged, like little shit that you want to just slap around the head. But here we go anyway. But like, so I kind of prepared myself that I wasn't going to get one for Christmas, and a surprisingly mature decision, which I'm still amazed that 13-year-old me was able to like be that mature and reasonable about it. But I kind of was like, oh, I won't get one, but I'll get one in after New Year, hopefully. So what I did instead is I picked out some like games from my original Xbox that I was like, I'll take those, and that'll be something to do at least at Christmas. And so I woke up Christmas morning 2005, went into my stocking, and none of those Xbox games were there. And I was I remember being in the most foul mood ever. I was like, what the hell am I going to do at Christmas now? Like, this little privileged, like, just whiny shit, just being like, whoa, Christmas is ruined. And I was sulking upstairs, and like, my parents were like, oh, Adam, just come downstairs. And I was like, no, I'm not coming down. Like, Christmas is cancelled. Christmas is ruined, like, and everything. And eventually they managed to coax me downstairs. And I came downstairs, and what did I find wrapped up downstairs? My Xbox 360. I was just like, oh, Adam, you're your own worst enemy at points.
Yeah.
But so I did manage to actually get one not long after release.
Yeah.
And honestly, looking at the 360 is my favorite console of all time. And I don't think it'll. And again, I accept, like I know there's been other consoles before, but I never had those ones. So I have to go with what I had. And it's my favorite console just because the games I played on it, the fun I had with it, and because it lasted so long. So the original Xbox was only really from 2001 to 2005. This one was 2005 to 2013, so it was a good long, like, what's that, 8 years?
Yeah.
That's a good long time, and that was, a formative years for me through, like, through kind of end of my childhood, through teenage years, everything. So, yeah, again, going into kind of adulthood. But what's interesting as well with when they released the 360, Microsoft were actually very smart and they very smartly positioned themselves with it. So the selling points for the 360 were number one, it was coming out a year earlier. It was the first console out of the gates, which is always an advantage in these situations. Is why help. Not there's lots of things for the PS2, but that was one of the things that it came out so early compared to its competitors. As well, it was a lot cheaper. The 360 was a lot cheaper than the PS3.
Yeah.
Something that Microsoft would would forget when their next console came out. Also, as well, the console was built around Xbox Live, which had been growing in popularity and was a really big selling point people were really enjoying from the original Xbox, and that just they just took that on. Well, if you compare it to the PS3, which I find is interesting, like the PS3, like it was more expensive, but it did have some really good features. Like it had Blu-ray, had integrated Wi-Fi that we were just talking about. You had to get a dongle for the. I've still got my Wi-Fi dongle for my 360 the PS3 had it integrated.
Yeah.
You could argue the PS3 looks better. It's just one of these, it's one of these points. I prefer the Xbox 360, but I can understand if people think the PS3 looks better. But looking at that, what do you think of like Microsoft's strategy? Do you think what do you think of that as a way of targeting your console, making it a bit cheaper, perhaps not having not having maybe the most up to date features like Blu-ray or integrated Wi-Fi, but going cheaper? Do you think it's a good idea or?
Well, I mean, it's a tried and tested thing, is it not? Like, I know, maybe not on the cheap side, but I know, like, Nintendo have done that before, where they've, like, stripped away, like, they don't have 4K ultra graphics or things like that, but they invest it in other things. And,
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there's, like, whole pros and cons with that and everything. Or Joy-Cons. Hey. Joke of the night, guys, write that down. Because this is the last joke I'm going to say. I'm going to get really serious.
So from now on.
But it's funny, like when you were saying that, like the amount of features that the PlayStation had, because one of the other ones that the PlayStation had over the Xbox, and I think this might have been one of the other reasons that I preferred it over the Xbox, because A, I'm Scottish, so I'm very fond of my money, and B, the fact that the PlayStation Online service was free, whereas the Xbox wasn't. The Xbox had the Xbox Gold membership, which you had to buy every month, or you could buy it like as a one-off, like for a year, which was about £50, I think.
Something
40,
like that, yeah.
40 to £50, which, don't get me wrong, was a lot of money. It still is. It's still a lot of money, but back then, it was like, how the hell am I going to get £50? You have to get like a really long paper run or something. Be like, yeah, just save up all those coins. But there is like a case to be kind of argued there, because even if you didn't have access to that, one of the major things I think was really good about the Xbox, and I know the PlayStation technically had this as well, but I mean the fact it was kind of considered like a LAN console.
Yeah.
And by LAN I mean like, you could get friends over, you could play Halo split screen, you could play with them online while you were sitting beside them. I mean, see, technically in some games you can do that now, but I'll get to that. Trust me. It's like, trust me, we will get there. But yeah, it was just like, again, I'm going back to this idea of it's a water cooler console, and it really is. It was this console, like, especially for uni students as well, because that's a key demographic to target.
True.
A very, I wouldn't say overly cheap, but it was a cheaper alternative to have. And I remember, like, 9 out of 10 people I met had an Xbox at some point. I always remember being introduced to, and you're going to be sick of me, like, bringing this up, but Castle Crashers was, like, on the Xbox 360, and the first time I came across that game was in university. It was one of my friends, or flatmates at the time, so you can blame him for me constantly bringing it up now. And we've played other games, like kind of just indie games, silly games, Call of Duty as well. I think Call of Duty like helped a lot as well, even though like it was cross-platform. It kind of gave it an advantage to kind of hold itself up on. And then of course, I think one of the things that we need to address is the first party exclusives, which I think was probably the strongest in this era of Xbox.
Oh yeah, well I mean, I was looking through the list of some of these ones and the exclusives, but also as well, like a lot of franchises actually started off on the 360. Their first release was on the 360, and it's an impressive list. Mass Effect, Saints Row, BioShock, these all, like, I mean, some of these ones were also on PC with Windows and stuff, but the first console they came onto was the 360. And if you go through like the list of exclusives, you've got Halo's 3, Halo Reach, the Gears of War games, the Forza games, Crackdown, Alan Wake, Fable 2, Castle Crashes, as you said. There was a lot of really strong, like, exclusive titles, or at least ones that, like, started off as exclusives that obviously released a few years down the line on other consoles. But they varied over quite a range of genres, which was good. And it was a real strength of the console. I totally agree. as I said, like I think this is why the 360 is my favorite, because I just think of all the great games, that I played on it and stuff, whether they be exclusives or whether they were ones that were also released on other titles. Microsoft were good as well, I think, at that time at making kind of deals with other companies, for instance, with Rockstar. Yeah. So after GTA 4 was released on, PS3 and other consoles as well at the same time as the 360. But what Microsoft managed to do was they managed to get the exclusive first dibs on the DLC. So you had like the Lost and Damned and the Ballad of Gay Tony, which were the two kind of big expansion packs to GTA 4, and they were exclusive to the 360. It might not have been as long as a year, but it was a good amount of time to begin with. You could only play them on 360 to start with, which was a big selling point as well for the 360. And I think all these things helped explain why the console sold so well, along with it coming out a year early and everything. Do you have any kind of, so obviously I know Castle Crashes is a very fun one for you, but do you have any others from the games from the 360 lineup that you look back fondly on?
I mean, other than obviously Halo, which I know I've kind of made this clear in like past episodes, where Halo 3 was the very first Halo game I ever played, and while I loved it, and it was like my very first time playing like a video game online, like properly with my friends, I had no idea what was going on in the story, but considering the games that came out at the time, so there was like Halo 3, Modern Warfare 2, though that was actually, Modern Warfare 2 was the first, or I can't remember what the other game was. In fact, no, I don't think I did have another game for it. I think Modern Warfare 2 was the very first game I got for the 360. Well, it's nice up until you play the whole game in one sitting, and then you're like, oh shit, what now? I guess I gotta go through and play it again. So you play it again and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Shit. It's like, I can't get a game, it's Boxing Day. It's like, that was my very first game, I think. It was my first game. As it kind of progressed and everything, and I started picking up more and more games, and now I'm looking at my cupboard just now, and it's like behind the door is like a kind of smog treasure of just so many Xbox 360 games, like all the Call of Duties and things like that. But one of the ones which I actually never expected to like as much was the Gears of War franchise. So I'll give you an example of how I got into it, because this was genuinely when you get those moments in your life where it your life could split off into two separate directions, in a very micro scale. This is what happened to me. I was in I think it was game with my flatmate, and we were looking at the pre-owned games. I was looking through them, and I picked up Final Fantasy at one point. I don't know why. I saw it, and everyone at the time was like, "Oh, it's a great game, play it." Sorry, that's not to say that all Final Fantasy fans sound like that.
That's some serious shade you've run around.
Yes, yeah, I retract the shade. I apologise. Don't worry, I'll put out a YouTube apology video later. I'll just be like, I didn't want to make this video, but I'm sorry.
The Final Fantasy nerds made me.
Those damn nerds. But yeah, I was about to get it, and then my friend was like, why don't you get Gears of War? Or no, he didn't say why don't you get it, but he was like, oh, that's a really good game. And I looked at it, and at the time I was going through a real kick of getting through FPS games. So I used to play a lot of Halo, Call of Duty. They were my main ones. And I was like, you know what? I'll try it. And I think kind of the cherry on top of the cake was when I gave over. So it was a 2-for-1 kind of deal. I gave Gears of War 1 and 2 over, and the person behind the counter was like, oh, by the way, we've got a limited edition version of this in the back. Do you want it? And I'm like, yes, okay. And yeah, that kind of just sweetened the deal. I'm like, yes, I'm getting this limited edition series of I think it was the second game. And yeah, I played through the first one. The way I like to describe the Gears of War franchise is the Alien series, where the first one's more like a horror thriller, the second one's more like a action film, which I have to admit I got quite emotional at Gears of War 2, but I never expected to. Did you feel the same?
Well, I think it's because the first game is so lacking in any kind of emotion at all. That actually, it's more of a gut punch in the second one. When in comparison to other things, it's not actually that emotional. But because the first one lacked any kind of emotion, the second one you're like, oh my god, it does kind of gut punch you. God,
I'm thinking the exact scene that I'm talking about here, and I can imagine you just saying, I mean, mean, it's all right, I guess. I mean, it's like,
Come on, man up a bit. Let's just
come on, chin chin.
come on, bury it down. No time for emotions.
Just like a real spaceman, come on. Chop chop. But that kind of got me into the Gears of War franchise, which of course was exclusive to Xbox. And as I said previously, with the release of, Rareware going to Xbox and the infamous 2008 release of Nuts and Bolts, which again, I know this is a lukewarm opinion, but if it was any other game, it would be a fun game, a fun vehicle builder. But the fact they put Banjo-Kazooie in front of it, it's like, what the hell? And that was Rare, not even Rare, but Microsoft were pushing this hard at the time, because I remember being in, a mutual shopping centre that you and I have both frequented, let's just say, and looking up, and there were all these billboards saying guess who's back? And it was the horrible blocky version of Banjo that was oh, put it away. Before we move on to, the Xbox One and that infamy, can we talk about the gimmick years?
Yeah. Well, I think before we tap into the gimmick years, I'm going to get a few more positives in here.
Go for it. Go for it.
I think as we're talking about how the original Xbox was a trailblazer, the Xbox 360 carried on many of that, and the way it pushed live, and Xbox is now a standard for Sony copied it, and for their I don't know what's it called, but whatever their online functions are and stuff But you're looking at things like party chat, achievements, the full messaging features, friends lists, gamer tags, making the console a media center thing, because the 360 is one of the first ones that you could watch Netflix or other streaming services on. These are things that are industry standards now, unless you're Nintendo, but other companies have adopted these ones for things. So it did really set a trend. Now, of course, with all that being said, as you have subtly hinted at, there is one elephant in the corner when it comes to this bit, and that being the Kinect. Did you ever get a Kinect for your 360?
I did not, no. I eventually got one secondhand for the Xbox One, but I never picked it up for the Xbox 360 because I don't even know why. It never interested me. I thought it was a cool idea, but when you saw the games coming out for it and everyone going, it's more of a gimmick. Because the reason I'm calling it the gimmick years, right, that is, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh at this, but at the time, you have to kind of think, this was when the Wii came out. Now, the Nintendo Wii was a console that, as fun as it was, it had a lot of gimmicks. I think that was the only thing keeping the Wii afloat for half of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously their first party games and everything like Mario and so forth was the other half, but it was the fact you had motion controls with the Wii that whenever you played a game you had to shake your arm as if you were running after a bus and it wouldn't stop, so you had to shake your arm and be come back. But with the other consoles, I don't know why, because I thought they would have been sitting relatively comfortable, without the gimmicks. What eventually happened was the PlayStation did their own version called the PlayStation Move, where it was essentially just a Wiimote with a ball on the end of it. I don't know why, but that ended up, and I've spoken about this before in the least saltiest way possible, but that caused a lot of other games to kind of be cut back. And one of the examples which I bring up a lot, and I think I brought it up in our T-posing playthrough of Heavy Rain, was the fact that Heavy Rain, which, whether you love it or hate it, that was a game that had DLC planned for the longest time, and they got out one chapter, and then after that they were like, oh, by the way, we're not doing any more because we're working on the PlayStation Move. And I'm going to be honest, between that and the fact that Deadly Premonition, which although it's one of our favourite games, got a PlayStation Move equivalent, I don't know if it was worth it. If anybody listening, if you think the PlayStation Move was worth it, please feel free to let us know what you think. Yeah, that was their version. That was Sony's version. And then
they had 6-axis as well, if you remember. The controllers were that 6-axis thing. You could tilt them. And I've been playing Killzone 3 recently on my PS3, and the thing that annoys me, every so often I have to stop to twist the controller around when a guy needs to turn a valve. It's just one of these things that they went a bit heavier into the motions. I mean, nothing like the Kinect, but obviously it was more kind of
Oh
maybe
yeah.
smaller scale. But they went a bit heavier into the kind of motion control thing.
Because I think they carried that over to the PlayStation 4, and I don't know whether my like controller's broken or because sometimes like I'll flick it to the side and it's like I'll be playing like COD or something on it, and then all of a sudden my like entire body in the game just twists round or it
Oh
twists
God.
up, and I'm like, what is going on here? Stop! It's like, cease, desist. No, and then I end up like shooting the air and getting killed, and it's just a nightmare. So I don't know if it's that or just a faulty controller, but yeah, looping back, we've put this off for long enough. Looping back to the Xbox Connect, oh, they really like this is kind of why I'm a little bit salty about what happened to Rareware or Rare as they're known now, because they were primarily like ripped away from their like primary games. So like they did Banjo Kazooie, they did the Rare Replay saga and everything, or collection, not saga, but they did that. But then they did a lot of like Xbox Connect games, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but there wasn't many notable ones other than the Star Wars one. We know that's an instant classic, but
You say that the best-selling game on the Xbox 360 is Connect Adventures.
really,
Yep, 24. I think it's actually one of the best-selling games of all time.
wow,
24 because that was the. It's like Wii Sports. It was the game
ah,
that came with the Connect.
right, okay,
So if you bought a Connect, you got this one. I think this one had like the raft game, and things like that. Do you know the Connect is a funny thing because I think it might have been a bit younger when so Connect came out in like was it 2010 I think 2009 2010 was when the Connect came out.
yeah, yeah.
So I was God, I can't do the maths now. So I was 18, roughly 18 when it came out. I think if I had been a few years younger, I think I'd have been totally all over this because I remember how excited I was for the Wii. And maybe as well, like I'd kind of felt like I'd like spent myself out a little bit getting hyped over motion controls with the Wii that I didn't really have, enough to sustain into the Connect. But at the age I was, maybe I don't know, maybe you felt the same at the age you were as well. Like it just felt like a gimmicky thing that you were like, I just want to play COD. I want to play COD. I don't want to play like a raft game, now
Yeah,
and stuff. And I don't want to do Star Wars dancing. The fool that I was. I mean, who wouldn't want to play that?
exactly.
So yeah, it was just a game, but it was a gimmicky thing that they really stuck to. They really went all in on, and I think they really thought generally it would be a big thing. It would be like the future thing, something like maybe what VR is now. I think they generally thought this would be one of these things.
Because
How wrong they were, but
Because it's funny, because I think we might have spoke about this in the Deadly Premonition episode of Satsunami. I can't remember if we touched on it, but there was a game that the same developer created called D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that was, for the majority, that was supposed to be exclusively for the Kinect, but they also had like a option where you could
Right
like
with the controller.
yeah, it's like you could use the controller. And I remember, I think my favourite moment was when I was at your house before. Like, I honestly, I think you left the room and I was using the controller, but because I was sitting in front of the Kinect, I think I stretched my arm and I saw this like bar at the bottom of the screen slowly loading, and it was like, oh, like, oh, slowly, slowly. Do you want to use the Kinect? And it's like, wait, no. No, 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 no. No, 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 I don't want to use the Kinect. It's like, are you sure you don't want to use... I'm like, no. No, 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 no. Oh, God. And eventually they just made you use the Kinect. I was like, oh, God.
It's worth trying just for how awkward and awkward it is. That's one. There you go. That's one that you should stream. You should get a full camera and people can watch you play D4. Connect.
Yeah, oh, God. I wouldn't even try it. Oh.
Never.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, but yeah, not worth like buying the Kinect for it. Definitely not worth buying the Kinect. Which the Kinect is good, but it's not worth it.
It's not good. Don't lie. The
Uh,
Connect never was good. It was a gimmicky thing. I mean, well, unless maybe somebody liked it.
yeah,
Sorry if you really liked the Connect, but
like for
I don't know.
kids and things, I can understand why people would. But I agree because I was also into like the Xbox phase and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
did it like it was interesting because obviously like the Xbox 60 was your first Xbox console, and as much as we've just been like crapping on Connect and obviously had technical issues, there must have been something about that because you obviously then decided to get the Xbox One. So the 360 must have made enough positive impact on you to like that you wanted to stay with the Xbox brand. Do you know like what it was about like the 360 that made you want to keep getting Xbox consoles?
Honestly, I think it was just because my friends were on it.
Fair
Because,
enough.
like as I said before, I had friends that were on the PlayStation, but at the same time, I didn't really speak to them very much. Like as I went through school, like you know how it is. Like you make friends with people in school, then you drift away and you go to different groups and things. And although I
Yeah.
still kind of kept in touch with them, we didn't play as much as we used to. Whereas I was making friends with other people who had like the Xbox, and I kind of want to be in this world, kind of thing. Because again, third time, get your bingo cards ready. But it's like, it was like the water cooler of the playground at the time. Or not playground, but you know what I mean, like in high school. It was that
Yeah.
kind of
The common room.
yeah, and you could be like, oh, did you play that no Russian mission and Modern Warfare 2? Did you do this? Did you do that? And the fact that the Xbox games, like the pre-owned ones, were ridiculously cheap at the time. You
Yeah.
could get like them in deals and things, and they had like the avatars, and which I have to admit the avatars weren't a selling point. I don't know why I brought that up, but like. It wasn't. I have to admit, the Xbox 360 on the surface, like if you look at it kind of objectively compared to, let's say, like the PlayStation 3, it wasn't the best console. Like in terms of, it needed the dongle, it had
Well, that's
the,
true.
the red
Technically,
ring.
yeah.
Yeah, it had like the red ring issues, you had to pay for online services. But at the same time, it made such an impact with the games that came out for it. Whether it be Halo, whether it be, Gears of War. It was just amazing. Even despite those, as you said, like if it was a smaller company, the Red Ring of Death would have killed that console. Yet they still
Yeah.
kept going on, and they've turned it into what it is today. And oh boy, should we move on to the Xbox One or
We might as well. We might as well.
yeah?
At least with the Xbox One, we can get the bad stuff out of the way to begin with.
Yeah, or is there any like closing points you want to say
I
about
mean,
the?
all I'd say about it is that it remains my favorite console
Yeah.
because if I was making a list of my favorite games,
Hmm.
nearly all of them are from I played on the 360. You can get them on other consoles, but I played them on the 360.
Yeah.
Things like Bioshock Infinite, Telltale's The Walking Dead, Grand Theft Auto 4, Arkham Asylum. All these games are the ones that I played on here. And it really was, as much as I like started off on the original Xbox and stuff. I think I really came of age in gaming terms on the 360, and I think it really set a trend for games that I enjoy. Like one of the like first person shooters are probably my favorite genre of game, and that was something that the the original Xbox, and then the 360 kind of specialized in. And it was a popular console for that type of game. And I
Hmm.
think if I had got another console, perhaps I wouldn't have been so into these games. If I'd got a Nintendo one, I might be more into platformers and things. So I think just the impact they had on me in gaming terms. I don't want to like oversell this and say there's massive impact had on me, but in gaming terms,
Yeah.
like it had a big impact on me. And just when I think of like my favorite moments in gaming, so many of them revolve around the 360.
Yeah.
Whether that be me playing on my own, playing split screen, playing on the couch with somebody else, playing online. Like I just think it was a great console.
No, I completely agree with you there. I mean, as I say, it's like at university, my memories, or, obviously I had other memories at university beyond, playing an Xbox, but even, like being able to break, because inherently, and I know this is ironic considering we're, streaming this out to Twitch, but like back then I was a really shy person, so it was really hard to break down that kind of barrier and be like, hi, I'm
Mm.
Satsu, I want to do this and that, and being able to play games with people was like a big help for me. But I always remember, so this is kind of like a funny story to close off on until we get to the Xbox One, but a funny story. So I remember my brother gave me a lift up to university one time, and basically I had like all my clothes in the back of the car. So I was really nervous about something happening to my Xbox. I put it like between my clothes, like in the back seat. So I was like, right, okay, that means I'm not gonna, it's not gonna like shift from side to side. It's not gonna bang into anything. And as soon as we arrived, what does my brother do? the very, very first thing he does, he lifts up the clothes and the Xbox falls out of the clothes and hits the ground.
Oh, jeez.
Now, the good thing is, the Xbox actually survived, but see if you pick it up now, there is like a rattling inside.
Oh, God.
Which is not healthy. But the ironic thing is, he also, for like one of his jobs, he borrowed my PlayStation 3 and he brought it back, and I was like, why is there a big chunk out the back of it? And there's like a huge crack at the back of it. So yeah, I don't trust him with my consoles anymore.
God. Stay away.
Like, they both still work, but yeah, I think they're on life support, if I'm
Oh,
honest.
jeez.
Speaking of life support, will we go into the Xbox One?
Might as well. Might as well.
The Xbox One. Where do we begin with the Xbox One? I'm going to be honest. The Xbox One, while I appreciate it now, and I am going to come on to a positive point, it was an abysmal opening, wasn't it?
They just. It's so funny because they did such a good job marketing the 360
Yeah.
and promoting it and actually making it this unique product that people wanted to get. But they did such a horrible job with the Xbox One. Now, apparently, they did have it was a completely different team who did it to
Right.
do launch the Xbox One to the 360. But it's mind-boggling how badly they bungled it and how they didn't remember any of like the core things that made the 360 so popular at launch.
Yeah. I think the main thing initially where they shot themselves in the foot was they had said that this was going to be a console that was more. In fact, it was the marketing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was more the marketing that killed this, because I've said this before about the 360. They are saying, and again, get your bingo cards ready, that the 360 was like the water cooler console. This is how they marketed the Xbox One. They said, oh, this is the water cooler console, and you're like, really? Like, they marketed it as a media centre. So, like, you could play movies, you could talk to people on Skype. You know, you could do all these things, and it's like, okay, but where's the games? What games are we talking here? Oh, by the way, it comes with a Kinect. It's like, right, okay, yeah, what about the games? And also, and you're like, oh, Jesus, when will this end? Okay, what's the other thing? It has to be connected all the time to the internet. And everyone, I think, as a consensus, just said, no, that's stupid. And they, like, this was an official statement until the person stepped down a couple of weeks later.
Yeah.
But he turned around and he said, well, we've got, you know, a console for people who don't want to be online all the time. It's called the 360. And everybody lost it. Because the other thing as well was something to do with you couldn't play pre-owned games. It's like you had to buy the games and you couldn't. It's so much so that there's like a famous advert from, I think it was Sony at the time, and they showed you how to play like pre-owned games on their console. And basically it was like two of the CEOs like standing there, and it was like, step one, and they just hand the like game console over, and it's like, that's it. that's how you play pre-owned games, and that's how you trade games.
Whereas, they had a lot of fun at Microsoft's expense.
They just. I'm just surprised that it was just one thing after the other. Like, somebody greenlit in the background had said, this is the way I want the company to go forward. We want it more as a multimedia centre and always online, and just it was baffling, wasn't it?
In a way, like, if you look at some of the ways the 360 was going, I said that the 360 was the first to have streaming. You could stream things on it and everything, and it was a sort of media center, quote unquote. Like, it kind of makes sense the way they pushed it from that perspective. You look at it that in isolation, but they really like downplayed the games console part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
The thing as well was the price. It was $100. It was $100 most. I don't know what that works out in pounds, but yeah, more than the PlayStation 4, which is the reverse of the 360 was cheaper, and which is one of the reasons why it sold so well, cheaper than the one. And a big reason why it was more expensive was because, as you said, it became bundled in with the Kinect.
Yeah.
So the Kinect is a pricey, peripheral to make. So from a business perspective, you're like, well, it costs us more money to make it, so we'll offload that onto consumer. Yeah. So business makes sense, but yeah, it was just people were not happy with that to be such a jump as well. And yeah, it was a disaster in basically every respect, pretty much. And I still bought one, so that was how in deep I was into the Xbox cult by that point.
Do you know, funny enough, I eventually bought one as well, but I didn't buy it until they backtracked and said, because I was kind of holding off and I was genuinely thinking, do I jump ship and buy a PS4? Which, don't get me wrong, like I bought one like last year, I think. So I bought my PlayStation 4 really, really late. But for the not the 360, I wish, for the Xbox One, I bought it like maybe I can't even remember how long it was after it was released, but eventually that's what they said, that they didn't have to buy it with the Kinect. Although I went out and bought a Kinect anyway, which
Just to cover the bases.
yeah, because I really wanted to see what it was like, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't impressed with what I saw. Because this is the thing, like I saw a lot of people, it's the typical like good-looking models or actors who come in and they're like Xbox, turn on, and the Xbox turns on, Xbox turn off, and the Xbox turns off. Right, the Xbox turns on, but for me it would not turn off, so I was having like a Braveheart competition with it, just yelling at it. And just indescribable Scots, like just saying Xbox, yeah, ball bag. It's like, get off. It's like I'm sorry, I don't understand. It's like, oh, bugger off. How could you? So I didn't get a lot out of it. Like I could save a couple of like kills on like Call of Duty or something. Say like Xbox record that, which I thought was neat. I'll give you that. I thought that was neat. But other than that, I don't think I was missing much. Like with the Kinect.
Yeah. I know. It's caused me more problems. I mean, I bought a launch, one that had the Kinect bundled into it, and it caused me more problems than than it caused. The only thing worth it was to watch you play D4. I think it's about got my money's worth for that.
That is true.
Apart from that, not worth it.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I
not
tried.
Worth it. It's sitting unplugged now somewhere.
I tried playing it. It didn't work. Lesson learned. I looked like an absolute idiot, waving my arms, going, "No, I can do it, coach. Put me in." Oh god, but yeah, it was just. Oh, it was crazy. But,
can I inject a note of positivity into this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do you want to say anything else about the launch?
No. I think that's more or less it.
I'll just say a quick little note of positivity then, and hand it back to you. But I think in retrospective, this was a good thing that it failed so badly. And I don't know if you want me to elaborate or if you have anything else to say. I can come back to that.
Go for it.
Because I think because it failed so badly, Microsoft were immediately put into like they were immediately in like in second whatever, but I don't even know how I don't know how this fared against the Wii U in fairness, but I'll compare it to Sony for now. Just now they were immediately in second place, a distant second place to Sony, and so to try and gain ground, Microsoft had to become very, very pro-consumer and very consumer-friendly. And I think actually being an Xbox owner, you actually got a lot of benefits from their fumbles and stumbles in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll come on to things like Game Pass and backwards compatibility and things. But a lot of these things that I don't know if they would have done or pushed as much if the Xbox One had launched successfully.
That's a good point, though. Do you know what it actually reminds me of? And I can't believe I'm making this as like a positive parallel, but Battlefront 2?
Yeah.
The remake. So that's kind of in a similar boat where it was a game that was definitely anti-consumer. Oh, it's, trust us, we're doing this for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's for your own good that we're, giving you all these like stupid, the passes and loot boxes, just idiots. But yeah, eventually because of there was such a harsh backlash that they had to reverse and U-turn their decisions, which is absolutely brilliant for, like us, for example, because, they ended up making a game that, I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of it, but like a lot of people got enjoyment out of it. It's like it's better than what it could have been at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's the same for the Xbox One. Like it could have been far worse than what it was at the beginning, but I think the other thing that hurt it though was, and correct me if I'm wrong because I can't remember off the top of my head, but there weren't as many exclusives, were there?
Oh, no, this is the way they turned away from that as part of their business model, and we talked about like all the kind of exclusives that were on the 360, and the original Xbox had a strong list as well. But yeah, this was something they just didn't show an interest in. And it's something that it was the one part of their original strategy that's kind of been kept on. I mean, it's starting to change now, because of Microsoft have bought over Bethesda,
Yeah.
So Bethesda's new Starfield is going to be an Xbox slash PC exclusive. So it might be coming back a bit, but it was something that they just decided that they didn't want to do anymore. Which is an interesting idea, and like in a way, like I can see why it's a turn off to people, but on the other hand as well, like I guess it really depends. Like I've never been particularly bothered by it because I've always been able to play the games I want to play,
Yeah.
on Xbox. So it's really like a kind of subjective thing, I
Yeah.
think. But I can totally see why it's a turn off to people, and it was a kind of strange decision.
Because, I mean, the PlayStation 4, let's face it, like, whether you're a fan of the PlayStation or not, they definitely stole the show, like, in the last generation. They completely, like, I think that was one of their, like, marketing tools where they're like, even today, they're like,
Yeah.
the best selling console in the UK and things. And it's not hard to see why, pretty much. Because it wasn't like the days of the 360 where everybody, like, the nostalgia couldn't maintain all of the kind of bull, you know what, that Microsoft were trying to peddle at the time. Like, that level of nostalgia and kind of favour for the 360 could not sustain them from going to a relatively, like a relatively pro-consumer business model to severely anti-business for the sake of, as we were saying, to become like something it wasn't. Like I know you said like the 360 was going to become more of like a entertainment system, which don't get me wrong, that has still continued to this day because like you can still hire movies on Xbox. You can't
The
use
Xbox is my main thing. That's what I watch,
yeah.
like YouTube or Netflix on and stuff. Like it is the media, quote unquote media center in my home, certainly.
I mean, the only thing you can't do now is use Skype because they stopped supporting it.
So there you go. One
Yeah.
thing.
The other thing they did as well, this is a slight tangent, but remember they had like a thing called Halo Channel, I think it was called?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it did not last long. Because I tried getting on it, and every time, like, I had a code that you could put into it, but every time I tried to get on it, it was like, oh, Halo Channel's down, and I was never able to get into it. So I don't know whether that was, like, something that they got rid of. Like, because I think I got mine in 2016, I want to say. Like, my Xbox console.
Oh, so you're a few years later as well. Then.
Yeah, like, I got it, I didn't get it on release because of the negative backlash. But then again, like, see, this is the thing about consoles, isn't it? When you're moving from generation to generation, there's that transitional period where you think, I don't want to go straight away into the next gen. A bit like what we're doing just now, in a way. Well, if you forget the whole shortage thing going on
Yeah.
with both Xbox and PlayStation, but
Yeah.
there is that period or the fact that you can still play these games, or you can play all the games you want. It doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah. No, that's true.
It's like you can still play like the Master Chief Collection, but not the Master Chief Collection. If I know you can. Sorry, I was thinking of the 360 there. You can play Halo, you can still play Call of Duty, unfortunately. You can still play, you can still play all of these, like, all the games you love on the Xbox One. There's no real games that you would, like, leap into immediately. And I think it was the same back then, that everyone was still invested in their 360, and it's like that kind of slow, kind of lumbering transition period, getting people to, like, weaning them off essentially from the 360 days to what was to come. And as you said though, like, kind of going on to a positive point, because I know I've kind of ranted enough about the devastating, like, opening of the Xbox One, but let's face it, it has, like, I feel as if nowadays it's turned into something a lot better. Would you agree with that?
I really like it. It has everything that I need, to be honest. The Xbox, like, I like the lay. I love the design of it. Like, I like the layout. I think it has the best controller now. I think, like, I know we've not really talked about the controllers, but I do have a soft spot for the giant Duke original Xbox controller, as oversized as it was. But I think, like, refined that design, and I think the Xbox One has just had the perfect controller, honestly. And I hope they don't ever change it, to be honest, because I really like the layout of it. But I find it intuitive to get around. They do keep changing it a little bit, so I do have to relearn a few things. But I find it quite easy to navigate around. It has everything I want. Like, I think Game Pass is one of the best things. Like, I think Game Pass is the selling point, to be honest, of Xbox now. Like, like it's for it's quite a decent price, and you get so much. There's so much on it now, and like such a wide variety of games, and like big title games as well. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, I don't know if it's still on there, but it was on there for a while, so you can get like properly like AAA releases if you want, as long as along with lots of other kind of indie titles, and just there's a great range of things. And I really appreciate their backwards compatibility, and especially at a kind of gaming a point in my gaming life that I'm at now. Like I have to admit, I'm not playing as many new games now. I'm very much playing a lot of older games,
Yeah.
and I like the fact that I can get so many of them on the I can either get them on the Xbox One or I can play them. I might have them for another console, like an older Xbox console, but I can still play them on my Xbox One. It just makes it a lot easier. So I really appreciate those features of it, and I really like it, to be honest. And they like, I don't have shares, and I don't have shares in Microsoft. I'm not, like I don't work for them or anything, so I don't really have a vested interest that much in how well it sells and stuff. But for me, it's. I said I'm quite glad they actually bungled the launch, because I think it's worked out better for me in the long run as an owner of an Xbox. I feel I'm more catered to now.
I have to admit, when the Game Pass came out, I'm going to be honest here, like, I genuinely didn't know what to think of it.
It
And
wasn't great to begin with, because
yeah,
it wasn't a great list of games. I would agree with you on that.
yeah, like, even one of the main problems I do have, and this is the only problem I really have, although this applies to things like Netflix and Amazon and everything, but the fact that there's now like an exclusive period for how long a game's going to be up on the Game
Mm.
Pass, which I feel as if is a bit annoying. It's not a deal breaker, but it's kind of an annoying thing when it's like, oh, maybe next week I'll get to play that game, and then when you finally get the chance, you're like, oh, it's no longer there. You're like, God damn it.
Yeah, I suppose.
But I mean, that's not like, I'm not saying like, oh, that means it's terrible, because you know what? I totally agree with you. I think that initially I was a bit wary of it. I was like, why am I paying like a subscription and you
Yeah.
have to pay on top of that? Whereas what they've done now, which I think is bloody brilliant, I'm going to be honest, is not only is it like in one, I think it's like £10 a month or something.
Yeah, like 10.99, I think,
Yeah,
something
ten
like
ninety nine, and you get like Xbox Gold, and you get, well, what was Xbox Gold, and you get access to Game Pass, which then also leads to one of the best things about it. I mean, you get deals as well from
that.
that, which is absolutely fantastic. But what you also get, which I have to admit, I was really, how to put this? It's like I honestly can't praise this enough. But one of the things I love now since I've got a PC is the fact that the Game Pass actually carries over to your
Good,
PC
good.
now. So it's like if I wanted to play, not, don't get me wrong, like not every single game is like compatible with the PC. Like there's certain like Halo games that you can only just now play, like your favorite ODST.
Lucky PC players.
Lucky me. But I think it's brilliant that they've
Yeah.
managed to sync both of them over. Whereas, and don't get me wrong, like, again, I'm not kind of pooping on, PlayStation owners, but from what I know of it, it doesn't seem to be the same. Like, they still get their free games a month. See, that's another thing as well. You get free games, like,
You
a
can get
month.
some good ones there as well. Like,
Yeah.
actually find real surprises. Your dad come and get us for free.
Yeah, I have to admit, sometimes, like, go back to your story earlier, sometimes I feel a bit entitled and kind of, like, really selfish when I see, like, the games that are free for the month, and I'm like, oh, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
you're gonna put those games for free,
I know.
and
Like,
it's like
this
just this,
drivel.
yeah, it's like this random indie game from like decades ago, and you're like, oh man, like, but at the same time, they don't have to do that, it's like
Yeah.
they don't have to make them free, yet they do, and you know what? It is really cool that they do. I feel as if they have like started to improve a lot more, which is always nice. It's always nice to see. Obviously, like I'm not saying like, oh, all hail Microsoft, because they're still a company at the end of the day.
Yeah, well,
But
that's true.
yeah,
Good point.
like
Worth bearing in mind. Good point.
yeah,
They're not your best friend.
yeah. I don't want to be like it's like all praise are Microsoft lords. Well, unless they want to pay us, Chatsunami@gmail.com. But no, jokes aside, it is definitely a step in the right direction, and I feel as if they are starting to make strides. But I'm
Yeah,
gonna point one thing out. What is up with their naming system?
it is a bit all over the place now.
Yeah, like now it's the Xbox Series I think they're
Series
calling the
X
new
and
ones.
Series
Yeah,
S.
Series X, Series S, and you're like, but why though? Why? Why would you call it that?
I did struggle to remember what they were. I was trying to look. I was like, what are they
Yeah,
called again? The new ones. Yeah, it is. It is. And that's why I was joking at the beginning about all
yeah,
the
yeah,
random X's and S's going at the end. Yeah, like it's a bit.
yeah,
It's a bit all over the shop now.
yeah.
But
Because
see, this is what my gamer tag when I was on the 360 was Apocalypse 720, and I did that because I was so convinced that I was like, oh, the next console's definitely going to be called the 720, and then they completely swerved me by calling it the one.
oh, I remember
Made me
that.
look like an
Yeah,
absolute fool.
yeah. Because that is the thing. It's like you have the original Xbox. That's just Xbox. Then you've got the 360. Okay, 360. Okay, bit weird, but that's
It
fine.
works.
Because they
Yeah.
couldn't call it like the Xbox Two. I don't think that would have had the same ring to it.
Yeah.
But then they had the Xbox One, which was a bit confusing, but it was still distinct enough. You thought, okay, like no
Yeah.
one obviously in 2000 was it 2013 that it came out? Yeah, like no one in 2013 is going to be, like wanting the new console and being like, oh, you know what, I'll have the console from like last decade. But yeah, then they came out and it's like, oh, we're just going to call them Series X, which is confusing because the Xbox One has a model called the Xbox One X and the One
Yeah.
S. So that was a small kind of ranty tangent, but I just
It is an important one.
I
It
just
is an
wanted
important
to,
one.
yeah. I mean, I've ranted about it before, but Nintendo did exactly the same thing when they went over from the Wii to the Wii U, and nobody knew what the Wii U was because of it. They were like, "Is it a console? Is it a extension to the Wii? What is it?" Nobody knows. Well, they do now, but it's like at the time, it's like, "What is this?" And then of course you had the DS, which is horrific. I'm going to be honest, it's horrific. You've got a Nintendo DS, you've got the DS Lite, you've got the 3DS, the new 3DS, the 2DS, just all of the DSs that were, just the naming convention's a nightmare for Nintendo, but that's a Satsunami for another day.
I don't
Yeah.
rarely I rarely praise Sony, but I will praise it. It's a bit easier to follow, like their console evolution, just from their naming.
Yeah. Like, again, like, I don't want to be like, oh, it seems like a simple name, but sometimes you need that.
I think sometimes depends who's buying it as well. Like I mean, think about
Yeah.
it. Me and you are getting confused here
Yeah.
about things, and we're people who are like quite au fait with this and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Imagine like a grandparent trying to like get the Series X and stuff, and like as you say, there's an Xbox One X and everything. It's like it is inviting disaster
Yeah.
a little bit.
Do you know,
From that thing.
funny enough, that's exactly what I thought when it came out. That was the first thing because, like, don't get me wrong, I don't know any like grandparents in danger anywhere nearby that are going to go out and buy an Xbox. But it's like that's the first thing I thought. I thought, what about parents? Or because let's face it, like especially parents from our generation, like or not like not parents that are our age. I mean like our parents. They're like when we were growing up. I mean how they like I don't know if your parents were the same, but it's like when you asked for another console and literally the response you would know what they were going to say. You would just hear but why though? Why?
Yeah.
Like I remember asking for I think it was a Game Boy Advance, and my dad turned around and said, "Oh, you've got a Game Boy Color." He didn't even call it that, but he's like, "Oh, you've got a Game Boy. Just turn it sideways, ha 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 ha," and then he'd walk off, and you're like, "Well, that doesn't help me right now, Dad." It's like,
Also, that doesn't work.
yeah,
The
exactly.
screen
Yeah, I
doesn't
know.
rotate.
I know. He was pleased with himself. He just walked off, and
Oh,
I'm like, that
please
doesn't.
do, please.
It's like that doesn't help at all. But that's the thing, though. It's like imagine like parent. See, this is the thing because I feel as if nowadays, technically, it's a lot easier. Like obviously, information's a lot more accessible and all of that with the internet and things. But even then, it's like how. Ugh, it's just a nightmare, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like, how are you going to explain to, like, wee Jimothy's dad or Jimothy's mum that they got him the wrong kind of Xbox because,
Yeah.
like, because I remember seeing, like, people, I could be wrong here, but was there not, like, a thing where there was a lot of parents getting the Xbox X? Or, sorry, the Xbox X instead of the Xbox Series X? So
I
they
think
were
there
getting,
might have been, to be
yeah,
honest.
so they were
Yeah.
getting like the Xbox One X. My God, I'm confusing even myself here. Instead of getting the Xbox, just a regular Xbox, or the new one. So it's all over the place. It's just
It is a bit all over the place. There's no denying it's a little confusing.
fun times. Fun times, alright. So yeah, are there any kind of closing thoughts you have about the legacy of this?
I think yeah, I think it's an important it's in I think it is an important I'm glad that there are multiple choices out there
Yeah.
for consoles because Monopoly is always bad, so it's good that there is choice. And I think now especially it's good that it is big companies who own these things, because even if the Xbox One is probably like a money loser, but it's good that it's run by like a big company that can absorb it, and we can Xbox, the brand, will keep going for a while longer. Same with Sony. If Sony's console ever did lose money, that's a big enough brand to absorb it. Same with Nintendo and stuff. And just yeah, like I said, like I've been an Xbox gamer since the very start. Like it's the console that I've grown up with. It's the console that I've known. The console, so the brand that I've known. Like as I said, like my favorite games are majoritively on Xbox and everything. My best gaming memories are on Xbox, and yeah, it's just something that's dear to my heart. And I don't have a Series X at the minute. I will get one eventually when I don't have to pay a scalper,
Yeah.
give them my firstborn child
Yeah.
to get one. But like I will remain an Xbox loyalist to the bitter end, because it's my console of choice, and I have such a backlog of games now that what's the point in me switching over? What am I going to do with all these games that I've piled up now? So I am wedded to the Xbox, and long shall it remain.
I have to admit, and this is probably going to sound sappy, but I think you're genuinely one of the reasons that I stuck to Xbox.
Oh,
Going over.
You're welcome, and I'm terribly
Yes.
sorry.
Why, thank you. No, I genuinely do, like, because I do have, obviously, like, I've got, like, other friends that had the Xbox, but at the same time, a lot of them, it's just the way things go, isn't it? It's like, they'll
Yeah.
move on from what they used to have, like, or from the kind of old gaming habits, and then they'll move on to like another console, and or not even another console, they just stop gaming.
Yeah.
Whereas
Get other interests.
yeah, whereas especially with the lockdown and things, you and I and our mutual friend Stephen, of course, and like a bunch of others, like have
Green
just
Shields, I really like
yeah,
them.
Green Shields have just started, playing these, just the Xbox, whether it's COD or whether it's Halo. I apologise again for making you play Halo, but it's like those kind of games which bring you together. And honestly, like as you said, even though like it has had its mess ups so far, like I feel as if it's too early to tell how the Xbox Series X is going to play out,
Yeah.
because I've got high hopes for it, but at the same time it's like it's really hard to tell in the early days, because let's face it, like the original Xbox, I mean, it had so many problems. The Xbox One just, like, see if you took it at face value, like at the very beginning, then you would have never expected it to have like taken off with the Game Pass and things like that. Yeah, it's amazing how it's turned itself around. Whether it's a miracle that happened, or whether it's like really by luck, or whether, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like it is down to luck. I'm sure there was a lot of like hard effort to, spin it around.
Yeah.
Which definitely like toot sweet, but yeah, I honestly think that they have built something that hopefully will last on. Because it would be a shame to see the Xbox, which I don't think it would. Like, maybe a controversial take, but I think, like, Nintendo... Well, no, maybe not Nintendo. I was going to say, like kind of closing off, if you could choose... See one of the three main, like, giants of gaming just now.
Yeah.
So you've got, like, Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox. Like, yeah, it's a bit of a morbid question, but who do you think would go first?
Who do I think, or who would I want to go first?
No, who do you think?
Who do I think would go first? Honestly, I think Xbox would go first.
Do you think?
Because Microsoft have other Nintendo kind of have to keep going, because what are they going to do if like that's that company surely done for. Yeah, unless they go the way of Sega.
Yeah.
But then Sega haven't been a success. Well, I know Sega are still going, but Sega haven't been like a big success story in years, decades.
No, you're right.
So Nintendo would surely go the same way. So I think Nintendo are, like they have to survive. They have to keep doing well to survive. Sony, I know Sony have other ventures as well, like, and they do a lot of other hardware and everything. So they probably would be fine. But I think as well, like if they lost PlayStation, that would be a big dent. I'm gonna guess would be a big dent into their, revenue and size. With Microsoft, like Xbox isn't their biggest thing. Obviously it's still Windows and the PC and everything.
Yeah.
So that there's a perfectly viable alternative there for them. So I think it would be Xbox that was to go. I don't think it will,
No.
because I think it's like, it's established now and it is profitable enough for them to keep going. Even if they do lose money, like, occasionally, it's not a big enough dent, I don't think, at the minute to be something they'd cut bait with. But I think it is the one that's probably most likely to go, unfortunately. And then I guess I'll just have to become a PC gamer if that ever does happen, or maybe make the switch to Nintendo. I might just switch over to Nintendo, perhaps.
God, that would be terrible for you, wouldn't it?
Well, I would just have to give up first-person shooters, I guess.
Oh, God, yeah.
Get into platformers.
I'm not gonna lie, see if I am gonna play like a first person shooter, I'll either do it on the PC or I'll do it on like the PlayStation or Xbox. I cannot do it on like Nintendo console.
I tried playing the original Doom. I bought it for the Switch recently. I'm like, God, this is not a console designed for a first person shooter. It just doesn't work.
I know it's technically not the same, but I tried playing Skyrim on the Switch.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it does work, but see trying to shoot an arrow and it's like, oh, now we've got motion controls, and it's like, please don't. Please,
Why?
Please just stay still. Yeah, no, I would have to agree with you on that though. But I know what you mean. Like, there's no way that like Xbox or Sony would like. They're not going to go the way of Sega anytime soon.
Yeah.
Like, I think if in 2013, if the Xbox One continued the way it was going, and it was like saying, oh, we're gonna we're gonna keep these bad business decisions, then yeah, they would have failed right away, which is a shame. And this alternate future that I've just thought up of. But yeah, no, the Xbox, I think, has made a positive impact overall. Like, would you say it's made a positive impact in gaming overall?
I definitely would say so. I mean, like, because it'll created, like, just for me, like, how the memories that I cherish from my gaming time are on Xbox. It'll done that for so many other people.
Oh, yeah.
And like the collective memories and everything. And like, there have been some great games that have come out on Xbox, like Halo. Halo is a standout title that's highly regarded in history. That was an Xbox game. The Forza games are considered some of the peak of racing games. They're Xbox titles. Like Knights of the Old Republic the Star Wars game it started off as an Xbox exclusive. So these kind of landmark titles were on the Xbox, originally. So it really has helped kickstart, a lot. And I talked about the franchises that got their start, on the Xbox 360 and then carried on. So I think it definitely has had a positive impact. And it'll be, as we said, it'll be around for long. The amount of money that if Microsoft were willing to like take a $5 billion loss on the original like Xbox and then pour in like another over $1 billion to like deal with the Red Ring of Death, a situation with the 360, the Xbox is going to be around for a lot longer.
Oh, totally. And even in terms of game, like if you frame it in like the gaming landscape and everything, it's never going to go away, is it?
Nope. The giant green and black will always be there.
It always will.
And the Duke controller will forever hold a place in my heart.
Oh yeah.
I am so excited. They're actually bringing. I think I showed you, but they're bringing back a Duke controller for the Series X, which makes me really want to get a Series X now. It's going to be the glory of the giant controller.
Can I just say, speaking of like the controllers, that it is a good thing that they haven't changed the design. Like, I know you said this before, you were like, oh, hopefully they don't change the design, but I think the only thing they've changed is they've put a like share button in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. The rest of it I think is just regular, which is really neat. Really cool. And also, sorry, one last closing point before we finish off, but I remember you showed me a picture of the original Xbox. Like, design, do you want to explain that?
The original prototype. Yeah. Let's see if I can remind me again. Yeah, so the prototype that they revealed in 2000, well, Bill Gates actually revealed in 2000 for the original Xbox console was it was a giant X shape, and that was basically what it was. So rather than the original Xbox, if people don't know, was like a kind of classic kind of rectangular console with a kind of like X in the middle of it. This original prototype was just going to be the X and take away like the rest of the rectangle and sort of a big green power button in the middle. I mean, part of me thinks it looks really awesome, But the other part of me think it looks highly impractical, and I'm like, where the hell would that fit in, and everything. But they obviously decided that it was much far easier to go with the more classic console design. But another what could have been.
Do you know what it actually reminds me of? Do you remember the old prototype for the PlayStation controller? And it was literally a boomerang. Well, not a boomerang, but it was like that kind of like shape.
Wow.
Like, honestly, I remember seeing that for the first time and thinking, oh, it looks so futuristic. And then, like, the more you think about it, the more you think, this is just like It's honestly like a step away from what remember the old N64 controller? You took out the middle bit and just made it longer at the sides. Yeah, it wouldn't have worked, but...
Can I say that's hideous? I don't particularly like the PlayStation 4 controller design, but that boomerang is hideous.
Oh,
jeez.
Yeah. Like, I have to admit, I'm going to put my bias out for sure, but I prefer the Xbox controllers 100% compared to the PlayStation. I always feel as if the PlayStation ones are quite fragile. Like, you'll touch it.
Yeah.
Because I remember, last bit I swear, but I played Heavy Rain on the PlayStation 3. Now, apparently, from what I remember, you had to hold down the right trigger for someone to walk forward.
Yeah.
So it's not like now where if you're playing it on the PC, you can move it with the analog stick. You have to like physically hold this down for the guy to move around. And yeah, I was always worried because every time I would play it, the like button would get looser and looser, and I was like, I was so scared it was going to fall off. But with like the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One, well, I think the Xbox One is just the pinnacle of great design.
Yeah.
When it comes to like those kind of controllers, but that's my bias showing. And also, they also developed like a lot of accessible controllers as well.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you've seen that. It's like for people who can't use like standard controllers, they've got like, I don't know if you've seen them, it's like a kind of rectangle with like black circles on them. And it lets
yeah. They kind of look like almost like turntables.
Yeah.
Like, almost like a DJ turntable thing. Yeah, it's a really good idea.
It is really awesome, the fact that they're putting money into it. And I don't know whether or not they've done something similar. I don't know. But either way, like the fact that a company has done that. And again, this isn't me saying, oh, Microsoft, please adopt me. But I don't know. I just think that's kind of cool. That they've,
it is cool that they have done that. And hopefully I'm sure other companies probably have done it as well. But hopefully they keep doing that.
It would be cool. But yeah, that's the Xbox and 20 years, and hopefully, I know it's early days, but hopefully may it continue for
another 20 more.
Exactly. Oh, it will, hopefully, please.
We'll come back in 20 years' time and do the 40-year retrospective.
It's like, oh my god, what happened to the Xbox 320? It's like, oh no. As always, Adam, thank you so much for not only bringing up this topic, but joining me in it.
Inflicting more Xbox on you.
Exactly.
No, this was my pleasure. I always like looking back. That's the historian in me. I can't help it.
Yeah, you and me both. I think that's why we click so much with Xbox. It's just like, yep, this is a great topic for both. Yeah, looking back on, analysing, studying.
A shared cultural history.
Exactly.
The basis for a good friendship.
Exactly. If you want to see more of our work, then you can catch me personally on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and of course Twitch under the name Satsunami42. If you want to check out more of our Chatsunami episodes, you can check us on Anchor, Spotify, and really all good podcast distributors. So just type our name in, Chatsunami, and you will find us there. We are also in the midst of doing pretty much a Let's Play series is the best way to describe it, isn't it?
A journey.
Yes, where you, of course, myself, and our fellow friend, Green Shield, are playing through a variety of games under the name T-Posing on YouTube. And we've been playing through Heavy Rain, which is a very upbeat, family-friendly game. We also, someone has mentioned like a reference in the chat. I will not read that for future reference. So you have to watch the VOD. You have to watch the video to know what we mean about this. So we've been playing through Heavy Rain, Warzone, and Breath of the Wild. But if there's any other games you want us to play, feel free to let us know, because we're always up for it. So long as it's like, what was the game we said earlier that we didn't want to play? I can't even remember.
Quite a few.
Yeah, there's quite a few, yeah. As long as it's not ODST. Anything but.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, C4 in the chat saying, Heavy Rain, Depressing Dad Simulator. I would recommend you all watch that one. That episode.
I mean, despite the title, go watch it, it's great.
Yeah, that is. If you want, like, opinions on, interior decorating and things like that, yeah, go.
If you want to watch Satsu fail miserably to keep to a schedule, go watch it.
Now, hold on. I didn't fail at that. I'm putting that out there now. I did not fail at that.
Well, go watch it and then see what you think.
Oh, God. Yeah, someone's saying, I'm a fan of the first episode with the censoring. Oh, there's going to be a lot more censoring in the future episodes.
Oh, just you wait.
Oh, just you wait. Just you wait to see what I've got planned for the censoring. Oh, it'll make a totalitarian state blush with the amount of bun censorship that is coming that way. As always, guys, thank you all so much for joining us today to talk about the Xbox. As always, stay safe, stay awesome, make sure your Xbox doesn't red ring, and yeah, most importantly, stay hydrated. Bye, guys.
Bye.